I'm doing an explanation of the two past tenses that you're going to see at this point in French. There are other past tenses, but here are the two that we're dealing with right now. Firstly, the Passe Compose. It's used mostly with time words. So, for example, l'année dernière, hier soir. And it's used to express an action that occurs within a limited amount of time. So, j'ai habité à Paris pendant un an. Here I'm using the Passé Composé because I've restricted that action of habiter to 1 year. When you're telling a story or reading a story, it's used to express the actions in the story rather than descriptions. So, for example, ce jour-là, il faisait beau et chaud, mais tout à coup, il y a eu un gros orage qui est arrivé de l'ouest. So here we have the faisait, the imparfait, describing the background of the story when the action actually takes place. And the action would be il y a eu and the orage est arrivé. So notice the difference between the usage of the imparfait versus the passé composé here. If you could see the time-space continuum, it would look like an X on the line. Ce matin, j'ai bu 3 tasses de café. Mercredi dernier, Marc est allé à Miami. As-tu étudié pour le quiz? So, if you're a visual learner, you want to imagine this passé composé as a single fixed point on the time-space continuum. The imparfait, however, is used to express a lasting action with no time constraints. So, for example, j'étais fatigué. I was tired for a period of time. We don't know exactly how long I was tired. I was just tired. Or il avait faim. Who knows how long he was hungry for? Or he was hungry for 39 minutes. In that case, you would have used the passé composé. But most of the time, when you're talking about être or avoir especially, it's hard to pinpoint a amount of time that was true. So you're usually going to use the imparfait with that. It's also used to express a repetitive action in the past. So, j'allais chez mes grands-parents tous les étés. That was a habitual action in the past, but that is no longer true. Later we'll talk about what happens for a repetitive action that is still true today. So this is an action that began and ended in the past, okay? But it was repetitive in nature. And in a story, it's the verb tense that's used for descriptions rather than actions. So again, back to that story. Ce jour-là, il faisait beau et chaud. We're doing the description of the background before the action takes place. Mais tout à coup, il y a eu un gros orage qui est arrivé de l'ouest. All right, so just again notice the difference between those two. If you could view them, the two different uses of the imparfait on the time-space continuum, when we're talking about a repetitive action, right, it'd be something that was cyclical in the past tense. For example, here, tous les week-ends, elle travaillait comme monitrice à la piscine municipale. This is something that she did over and over again in the past tense. Or we could have one that was a lasting action with an unknown duration of time. So, nous écoutions la radio quand nous avons entendu l'annonce qu'un orage arrivait. Notice here we were listening to the radio for an unknown amount of time when suddenly the action takes place. Nous avons entendu l'annonce qu'un orage arrivait. Notice how arrivait here is in the imparfait. The storm was arriving within an unknown period of time. The English equivalents to this, obviously translation is not possible directly from English to French or French to English, but the closest equivalent for the passé composé would be the ed. So he watched a French film, passé composé, il a regardé un film français. Please be aware that there are so many irregulars in English for the ed tense. For example, he sang a song. Obviously there's not ed there, but that would be the passé composé. And then the imparfait for its two uses, for the undefined amount of lasting action in the past would be was, ing. So he was watching a French film when Pop called. So here we have the Imparfait. And again, notice he was watching the film for an unknown period of time when the action takes place. Baba téléphoné. And then here, Imparfait, used for the repetitive action in the past. He used to watch French films in college, would be Il regardait des films français à l'université. Well, guys, I hope that this lesson was helpful to you for the understanding of the two tenses. If you have any questions, please come visit me after school, or you're always welcome to send me an email as well, and I'll try my best to do an explanation. Bye-bye, guys.